So about the things that pays for all the stuff you just talked about, hospitals and roads and whatnot, let's get into oil here. For a while, this past fall, oil prices were over $90 US a barrel, and yet we did not see an uptick in drilling activity. And indeed, several companies wrapped up their drilling programs around October. Rig counts have remained low, even when prices were high, and continue to remain low even as oil prices are now in the $70 range. When I took Mr. Ryder for a tour a month ago, there wasn't one drilling rig working west of Estevan. Is your government doing anything to reinvigorate oil drilling activity in Saskatchewan?
Yeah, what I've asked Minister Ryder to do time and time again is to reach out through yourself, but also directly to the various oil producing regions we have, because I have the same concern you have, is we're not seeing the level of new drilling that we should be seeing in what is traditionally pretty strong oil producing areas of the province. And so he is doing so. And so what advice we are receiving from the industry and industry partners on how we can make, the opportunity for additional drilling to happen, we're taking that advice and acting on it very, very quickly. We're seeing a little bit of investment activity in the western side of the province up into the thermal areas, which is positive. But ultimately, at the end of the day, what we're seeing is a lack of certainty, exclusively at the federal level, for the industry to have the ability to make the investment into drilling new wells. They don't know that if the current federal administration is allowed to have their way over the course of the next number of years, if they'll be able to see that well through to a profitable time of life. And so that makes drilling incredibly difficult. I talked to the folks in Alberta, and there is some drilling going on in Alberta, some geological differences that may be the cause of that. But it is still much reduced from where they would like to see it when you're hitting price points of $90 per barrel of oil as well. And so it's 100% certainty. And the lack of certainty that is being provided by our federal government as to their commitment on not whether the industry is going to continue for the next decade or two, but whether the industry can even continue under their regulatory regime for the lifespan of one particular oil well.
So, kind of picking up on this, your government has set itself a numerous economic goals, such as value-added processing for canola, and it looks like we're getting there. But when it comes to the goal of 600,000 barrels a day, oil production by 2030, which would be roughly a 1/3 increase in 6 years and 2 weeks, I just don't see any concrete measures being undertaken to get us there. In fact, I don't even know how we're going to maintain flat production, let alone a 1/3 increase. If this lack of activity continues, what will your government do on this front?
Yeah, herein lies the challenge. And I think, when we made the prediction or the target of 600,000 barrels, I thought that was modest. And I thought we had the ability to actually go far beyond that, should things line up. The fact is we have been working with the industry from the provincial regulatory space on how do we ensure that we have a regulatory environment that will encourage the outbuilding and increase in production of one of the most sustainable energy producing areas in the world. We haven't found that same partner in the federal government. And herein lies the challenge, is that still is our target, 600,000 barrels. And should we find a willing partner to work alongside us as a province and the industry in expanding one of the most sustainably producing oil industries regions in the world, I still think 600,000 barrels would be a modest target. And so if we aren't able to find that partner in the current administration, we most certainly will be working when their job comes up for renewal to ensure that whichever administration is present after that is fully aware of the benefits of expanding the most sustainably produced oil in the world, and that industry and all of the jobs that come with it, and that's in the province of Saskatchewan. And so that's where it's at. The challenges are entirely federal, and we are going to work to see what we can do to ensure that we can find a way around those challenges.
So I put a call out for questions. What would you ask the Premier? And these next few are some of those. to what do you attribute the lack of capital in Saskatchewan on new drilling as compared to other provinces? And I guess you kind of touched on this. You're saying it's the feds.
There's a little bit of geology in Saskatchewan's case, but I think even if you look at Alberta, there's some drilling that is occurring, nowhere near the level that it should be at $90 oil. And in Saskatchewan, I would say that same statement is true, nowhere near where it should be when we're seeing $80 and $90 oil, all due to certainty, that is, the lack of certainty that's being provided by the federal government. If there's certainty that we're missing at the provincial level, we'll look at it. And we've asked the industry time and time again to point that out, because we want to provide that regulatory certainty so that if you're going to make a $1 or $2 million investment in drilling, and bringing a drilling rig in and, moving forward with a proposed well, that it isn't provincial regulation that is going to be hindering that kind of investment.
So, and on that note, some Saskatchewan producers are not happy, and larger producers are exiting and or not deploying capital to grow barrels here. There's continual griping that I'm hearing from producers about the ministry and the regulatory regime, and they feel that there's ever-increasing regulatory. Almost every week they're getting something new. Does the province feel like it needs to pivot and take a different approach?
Yeah, and those are exactly the decisions that consultations that I've asked Jim Ryder to go out now. That's not the environment that we want in any industry in Saskatchewan. We want our regulatory arms of government to be working alongside the industry as to what is not only feasible, not in lowering the regulatory requirements that are there, but to working with the industry to ensure that we are achieving what is feasible in the most economic, simple, and straightforward way. And so that is precisely some of the work that Minister Ryder is working on.
So this next one here ties into both the announcement at COP about methane, but also our increasing regulatory on methane. Saskatchewan is primarily an oil-producing province, with gas being an associated byproduct with minimal value. With regards to ever-increasing emissions regulations, what can the province do to help build out the necessary infrastructure that is otherwise uneconomic due to low gas volumes from associated gas?
Yeah, and so when the first round, prior to the announcement just a couple of weeks ago, the first round of methane reductions were imposed by the federal government, and then we had signed with the federal government, alongside consulting with our producers, a equivalency rate at which so the producers would be able to work on how it would best work from an economic perspective, achieving the same outcomes province-wide in our methane reductions. I would say largely with a great degree of success, as we had reduced, I think, methane emissions due to venting and flaring, I believe, about 65% in the province over the course of the last, relative to 2015, I think was those numbers, if I'm not mistaken. That was due to investments that were made at the producer level, and through a equivalency agreement that was signed on to by the province, through some advice, in fairness, from the industry, but with the federal government. This next round is going to prove to be more challenging, if it's possible or achievable at all. And so with respect to some of those areas where there is some infrastructure that may have to be looked at, again, those are conversations that we are going to have. And this is where you get into the economics of it, quite frankly, and the consequences of regulatory decisions that are being made at thousands of miles away from the actual producing oil field. And herein lies the challenges of a federal government that doesn't only not consult with the industry, but very little, if any, consultation with the province as well on what's realistic, what can work, and are there other ways for us to achieve a similar or the same outcome? And they don't seem willing to have that conversation.
Well, and on that, I have an atlas that used to publish. It's about that thick, of the gas plant atlas of Western Canada, and 99% of it is Alberta. And you flip on any page, there's gas plants all over the place. And in Saskatchewan, I believe the current count is around 10. We have one in southwest Saskatchewan I'm aware of. I think we have one in west central. I don't think we have any gas plants at all in northwest. I could be wrong on that. But the reality is there's no infrastructure there to tie into at all.
Yeah.
And if it was economic, they would have already been built.
Yeah.
But they haven't been.
Yeah.
So with these new methane, you can't emit anything. I don't know how we're going to survive that.
Yeah. It's a new environment, certainly. And I would say in many cases, whether it be clean electricity regs, clean fuel regs, whatever the discussion is, often it is not a realistic environment. And therein lies, some of the challenges. And I think that's why you'll see many of these regulations actually find their way to court long before they ever find their way to a realistic implementation.